this is bad, that's bad, meat's bad, dairy products are bad, cooked food is bad, processed food's bad, everything's bad. Try to just eat fruits and vegetables.
Hello everybody, this is Paul Nisa with the Raw Life Health Show. We have a very special guest today, Dr. Rick Dina. I've known Rick for many years. Rick, say hello to the Raw Life audience.
Hey there, audience. How you doing?
All right. And Rick, so you are a doctor and you're going to talk about a lot of interesting things today. But before we do that, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, my name's Dr. Rick Dina. I've been a raw food vegan for 26 years. So I've been around the block, started back in 1987, and went to chiropractic school, did an internship at a fasting center, used to work at Hippocrates Health Institute back in the early 1990s. I've taught at Bastyr University, was in my own practice for 10 years, and currently my wife and I teach a series of classes called Science of Raw Food Nutrition with Living Light in Northern California. We've got actually a 100-hour curriculum, and we're also working on our first book. We offer consulting to work with people individually, check lab work and all that kind of stuff. And at long last, we've joined the social media, and we're on Facebook and have a YouTube channel.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you said you've been a raw vegan for how many years?
26 years.
Now, 26 years, is that 100% raw vegan, or is that just mostly raw?
It's 100% vegan, and probably in that time about 90% of my calories have been raw.
Okay, now for those listening that don't know, and everyone should because it's the Raw Life Health Show, briefly explain what a raw vegan is.
Well, unfortunately there's different versions. My version of a raw vegan is somebody who eats mostly fruits and vegetables. And that's what I base my diet around, a few nuts and seeds, few avocados here and there. As far as the little bit of cooked food I eat, those are things like steamed vegetables, maybe some whole grains. I don't use agave, oil, salt, spices, processed foods, and any of that gourmet kind of raw food. It's not what I eat. I'm based on fruits and vegetables, not nuts and seeds and dehydrated, spicy, oily, salty things.
Okay, so what's the percentage of your diet that's raw?
Calorie-wise, about 90%. There's sometimes when I'm 100% raw for months at a time, and then I'll eat something cooked a time or two and go raw for a few more months. But I'd say on average, over those 26 years, about 90%.
Now, did you say you don't...
Of the calories, not just volume. Because sometimes, people have this much lettuce and this many nuts, and they don't realize this many nuts has, 10 times the calories of this much lettuce. So it's not volume, it's 90% of the calories raw.
Okay. Now, did you say you don't eat a lot of nuts and seeds?
Not too many. I eat a few, but they're not huge staples in my diet.
What would be the main source of fat in your diet?
The little bit of nuts and seeds I do eat. I mean, I eat some chia seeds and flax seeds, occasionally some almonds here and there. A lot of the fat comes from the fruits and vegetables, though. There's good, healthy fat in fruits and vegetables, and if you eat enough, you can actually get all your fatty acids just eating fruits and vegetables. And I've got a huge amount of clinical data and research to support that statement.
Now, we're going to talk about your clinical background, because it's one of the reasons I wanted you as a guest on the show. But before we do that, do you use any products on your skin?
Do I use any products on my skin? Other than soap when I'm in the shower, and I do use a little bit of natural deodorant. That would be it.
And the reason I ask is I want everybody that's listening right now to look at Rick and look at his skin, how flawless it is. It looks great, and he's been eating a raw vegan diet for this long. So anyone that thinks a raw vegan diet is missing something, I mean, we're going to talk about the internal and the clinical side of it in a second here, but for the external, I mean, Rick, you look like a young kid here, and you're not a young kid, right?
Yeah, I mean, Paul, you're very generous. I don't know that my skin isn't flawless. If we had an HD microphone, I'm starting to get a couple little crow's feet here and there, but which I guess isn't too bad at 46. But for the most part, I feel pretty good, and I think I probably look pretty good for my age, and Feeling good, so I'm going to stick with it for now, at least.
Great. Now, besides how you feel, because I know people that feel great that don't necessarily eat good because of stimulations and everything. So we're going to look at the clinical side of things. But tell us, over these last 26 years, have you ever needed, other than maybe a freak accident, have you ever needed to go to a doctor, or have you ever had an issue with any deficiencies or anything?
No deficiencies. It's been incredibly rare that I've ever gone to a doctor. In fact, I'm going to make a YouTube episode coming up pretty soon about a recent experience where I had to go down to the emergency room because I had something called a sebaceous cyst. And they run in my family. It's when a little gland gets clogged up and then it sort of swells up. And I had it for many years, and the dermatologist said, don't worry about it. And the thing got infected and swelled up on me. Incredibly rare. So let's see. I do visit a dentist regularly. And other than that emergency thing for the cyst, I can't think of another time I've been to a doctor that I had some health issue that I needed to go see a doctor for.
Now, you yourself are a doctor. What type of doctor are you?
I'm a doctor of chiropractic.
Okay. Now, for those people that think chiropractic is medicine, or a chiropractic doctor is strictly just cracking bones and looking at the spine, many chiropractors take it way beyond that. Can you just explain what that covers when you say you're a chiropractic doctor?
Yeah, so whether you go to chiropractic school, medical school, naturopathic medical school, or osteopathic school, those are the 4 primary licensed healthcare professionals in the United States. First year of most of those programs are pretty similar. You learn all the basic sciences. Then we go on to study more about mechanics, about the nervous system, some about nutrition, and we learn a lot of how to adjust the spine and that type of thing. That's true. But it's not like that's the only thing we learn about. So with that basic science background, there's many different specialties that somebody can go into. Just like with MDs, there's endocrinologists, there's emergency room doctors, there's all regular family practice. There's all different specialties within a particular field.
Well, Rick, it seems to me that the majority of doctors that choose an alternative health path, looking at other things than the typical medical doctor stuff, are chiropractors. And do you find that to be true as well? Yeah. Interestingly, some of my mentors are medical doctors, but most medical doctors are more ensconced in the medicine and surgery approach. The remedy mentality. You got a sickness, we give you this pill. Whereas chiropractic doctors, naturopathic doctors, to a smaller extent osteopathic doctors, tend to take a more holistic approach. And because that's their philosophy usually before they even get to school, that's why they choose to go to a profession that has a more holistic approach. They tend to carry that out into their practices after they graduate. Okay, and when you started doing this, going to medical school, and you started to become as a career a doctor, were you into raw foods back then, or what made you decide to go on a raw vegan diet?
Yeah, well, by the time I started chiropractic school, I had been a raw food vegan for about 10 years at that point. I had worked at Hippocrates Health Institute in the early 1990s. In the late 1980s, when I was still in college, I did some fasting, including a 14-day water fast that resolved most of my childhood allergies and other issues I had been experiencing before then. I had studied it quite a bit, so a good part of my reason for becoming a doctor of chiropractic was because I wanted to be involved in nutrition, in raw food nutrition, when I got out. And it was really cool going through a basic science program already being a raw foodist, because a lot of things that I read about and heard about and studied and all that kind of stuff, I was now learning the background in school that was the foundation of all that stuff, and light bulbs were going off like, oh my God, that's why Victoria Sklavinskas says this, and that's how that works. And I was putting all these pieces of things together and just really getting a lot of depth, and so that was really cool.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So what would be your advice to somebody out there right now who's interested in a raw vegan diet. They're just not sure how to do it. There's so much information out that can get quite confusing.
Yeah, okay, so someone who just wants to eat, well, first of all, probably everybody out there is somewhat of a raw foodist. Eating fruits and vegetables is not an unusual thing. Probably most people have had a salad at some point in their life. Most people have eaten an apple or a banana or some grapes or a melon. So the place to start is just by adding more raw fruits and vegetables in. So you might pick a day where instead of bacon and eggs for breakfast, you slice open a cantaloupe and just eat as many cantaloupe slices as you want until you're good and full and satisfied, and then eat whatever you want the rest of the day. Then maybe the next day you have your cantaloupe for breakfast and you make a salad for lunch, and then have whatever else you'd eat for lunch as well, but you're probably not going to eat quite as much of it because your stomach's already partially full of salad. So I would recommend people start with gradual changes like that. And there's a few reasons. Number one, you're not stressing your system or shocking it. You're going gradually. Maybe more importantly is psychologically, as you start to include more raw foods and then naturally eat fewer of the other things that you were eating previously that aren't as healthy as raw fruits and vegetables, you're going to start to feel better. And then you're going to have incentive to keep it up because you're going to want to keep doing it because you feel so good. As opposed to the way a lot of people start is they read, oh my God, this is bad, that's bad, meat's bad, dairy products are bad, cooked food is bad, processed food's bad, everything's bad, and then they try to just eat fruits and vegetables, and they may not be psychologically ready for that big of a jump, and then what happens is they're kind of struggling for a while, and then they resort back and they say, oh God, I blew it, I screwed up, and they go back to eating the things they're familiar with, and then they feel really crummy, and they're going back and forth, they're feeling guilty, and I have seen so many people crash and burn with that type of approach. So that's why I really recommend a sensible, gradual, sustainable approach that you enjoy, so you keep it up over the long term, and then you get to obtain all the benefits that a raw food diet has to offer.
What would you tell somebody that said to you, it's not necessary to eat raw foods or a good amount of raw foods because there's no history case of raw vegans living any longer than the average person eating the average diet?